So before we start, big thank you. A big thank you. Thank you to everyone who came to my 12-hour stream just passed on Friday, where we raised a lot of money for Alzheimer's Research UK, an incredible amount of money. I'm so lucky. So thank you from the bottom of my heart. It was a great time. But let's get on with this video. So guys, before we start, just a reminder to like this video, make sure you hit subscribe and turn on the alerts so you get a notification every time one of these videos goes live. And of course, come and follow me over on Twitch, where I stream every Monday, Wednesday and Friday. But it's time to talk Discovery, Season 3, Episode 7, Unification 3. So we open up, Michael and Book are in bed. You know, they've been doing some stuff together. They've been having maybe some afternoon delight, but they are talking about the future. The conversation turns around to Spock, and you know, Michael, you've been in the future now for what, over a year? Well, what have you been doing? What have you been doing? We don't know, but one of the things we now know is that you've not been looking up your brother. Why wouldn't you do that? Next scene, we cut in. It's Tilly and Michael, and Tilly is analysing the black box data, but she is not afraid to call out Michael on being a bit of a dick in the last episode. And of course, Michael goes to her default because I had to. And if I'm being completely honest, it's getting a little bit old now. And you know, because I had to is not really a good enough excuse when you're in Starfleet. Like, it is supposed to be a semi-militaristic sort of organization. Because I had to, you probably would have been court-martialed a lot more by now. I know we had the court-martial in the first series, but she keeps doing it. She should have been discharged by now. Tilly has been analysing the black box data, and it's coming down to millionths of a second when communication stopped between the ships. That indicates the burn didn't happen all at once. There was a clear point of origin. Incidentally, the first ship she mentions is the USS Yelchin, which lovely little nod to Anton Yelchin there. But they've only got 3 points of data. It's not enough data. They need more. Michael has read in the Federation archives about an experiment called SB19, where there were sensors all over a large sector of space, that if they could get their hands on that data, maybe they'd be able to get more information on the burn. Michael and Saru go to speak to Vance to see if they can get the data about SB19. It turns out, though, that data is being held on Vulcan, or as it's now known, Navarre. Navarre is now home to Vulcans and Romulans, because we know that Romulus was obviously destroyed, and it looks like Spock finally is succeeded in reunification of the Vulcans and Romulans. Now, Navarre had left the Federation 100 years previous to this incident. Turns out that the Romulans were the ones who wanted Navarre to stay in the Federation, not the Vulcans. That's interesting now, isn't it? No Earth, no Vulcan. The races that started it all off, the OGs, they're gone. The races that started it with first contact, they're out. Not longer in the Federation. So SB19 turns out to be a form of technology that Navarre had been working on to replace warp travel. And despite concerns about the safety of the tech, the Federation had ordered Navarre to continue developing it. Michael deduces that Navarre blames themselves for the burn, but Vance actually counters that Navarre blames the Federation for making them cause the burn. So there's a lot of tension going on between the Federation and Navarre. However, Michael's new information shows that Navarre is nowhere near where the supposed origin of the burn is, and that maybe they could show them that data and they would share the SB19 data. And Vance then has that idea of, hey, you're Spock's sister. Let's send you. As Michael returns to her quarters, we have flashbacks of her growing up with Spock. Michael sees Spock after she had left. She accesses Jean-Luc Picard's logs of Spock from Unification. And you know what? It was great to see this footage. I'm going to admit, probably the first time I've cried in this season, or at least a little tear was appearing. Just a little tear.
Don't cry for me, Argentina.
Discovery makes the jump to Navarre, and we meet Tarina. She's the president of Navarre, and she's surprised that Discovery managed to evade the long-range sensors, which Saru's like, hey, we have a spore drive. We can jump using mushrooms. Navarre has been informed of Discovery's little time travel incident, and that Michael is Spock's sister. And Michael does channel her best Spock when she says that Spock would find the situation on Navarre fascinating. T'Rina states that due to the political nature of the SB-19 data, how delicate things are still on Navarre, they won't be sharing the data with the Federation, which is obviously disappointing for Michael and Saru. And then Michael, again, because she had to, invokes Takal in Ket. It's going to be an opportunity for her to argue her case why they should have the SB-19 data. So the Vulcans and the Romulans come aboard Discovery. Nice to see that this transporter room's still getting some use though. Though, did you notice this guy in the transporter room? I mean, he is getting less work to do than Miles O'Brien on the Enterprise D. We get a lot of exposition about what's going to happen with the quorum, and then we get told that she is going to have an advocate. Now that advocate is going to be a member of the Qowat Milat. Remember them? They'll be assisting Michael. We remember them because that's where we got the Romulan Legolas from in Star Trek Picard. We quickly meet that member of the Qowat Milat, and surprise, surprise, it's Michael's mother. Saru and T'Rina discuss Discovery's place in the future. Saru hopes for diplomacy and offers to listen to Navarre's point of view and about the flaws of the Federation, and that instantly seems to soften T'Rina's approach towards the Federation. We find out that Michael's mother had landed on SL4 in the future and was taken in by the Qowat Milat. And that's the end of that. She sees that Michael is unsettled and she kind of prods her on why she feels like she's not settling in. And of course there's a bit of pushback from Michael. We cut back to T'Rina talking to Saru about basically the Federation got too big. There wasn't enough dilithium for all the worlds and everyone was stretched. And then she throws in the reverse of the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. T'Rina says, well, yeah, because of reunification, because of the way that we had to evaluate ourselves, we've dropped all the maxims and proverbs of old. And Saru counters the hesitation about the Federation by pointing out that, the Federation has paid a very heavy price and that perhaps it has learned its lessons, and that lessons are always learned when, a heavy price is paid. So we head into the Takal in Ket, and of course straight away Michael's case is thrown out by the quorum. They look to dismiss Burnham's findings straight away, but it becomes apparent very, very quickly that the three members, one Vulcan, two Romulans, they all have different motivations, and they're all looking after their own interests. And even after the first vote, the first emergency meeting, they can't decide who's sus. We have a quick aside, and Michael's mother points out that the lead of the quorum is being honest, and Michael is not. She bluntly tells Burnham that she cannot be trusted because she's not being honest of herself. So we go back into Kal and Ket, and it's pretty clear that Michael is losing. She's not being honest. So Gabrielle jumps in and she pushes Michael to be more honest, to be truthful. And we finally get her to admit that the reason she's doing a lot of this, because I had to, because of this, that, and the next thing, is because she has a fear of being wrong. She's scared that she might destroy the people she loves, which she has done already. And by being this honest and being pushed to that point, she actually withdraws her request for the SB-19 data because she can see that her request for it in the first place will destroy the planet she loves. It will destroy Navarre and destroy the work that Spock did. Michael and her mother have sort of a bonding moment of realization, and at the end of it, Gabrielle reveals that because of Burnham's honesty within that quorum, because of her withdrawing her request, T'Rina trusts her and hands over the SB-19 data to help solve the burn. And then they have this really, really lovely moment. Yes, she's going to stay in Navarre with the Qowat Milat, but she gets to tell Michael for the first time, you know where I am. One last scene with Saru and T'Rina, which ends, it hints that there may be a future for Navarre and the Federation. And then we end on Book with Michael in their ship, and Michael has finally realized she belongs on Discovery. Book is unsure what will happen, but he does finish by saying, you feel like home. So that was the A story. The B story involves Saru telling Tilly that he wants her to be the acting first officer. Tilly's obviously unsure because she's like, I'm an ensign and I don't have the experience. Saru is a lot more sure of this. Tilly approaches Stamets and says, what do you think? And of course, Stamets being Stamets, he's very blunt about it and says, I'll find it weird. Of course it would be. But then he's the one who gathers all the senior officers together, the engineering, and they all say yes. They would all follow Tilly. And then Michael, of course, turns up last saying, oh, I'm sorry I'm late, but she's got the SB-19 data, and Tilly gives her first order as first officer. It's a lovely little moment. Overall, this was a good episode, but I wouldn't have called it a third part to TNG's Unification. In comparison to last week's Scavengers, it actually felt like a lot more happened in this episode, which is surprising considering this week was a lot more talking and compared to last week's action-packed Scavengers. This was the first episode that got me a little bit emotional, a lot emotional, okay? First with the footage of Spock, and then Tilly and Michael's interaction kind of got to me a little bit as well, where she revealed that she was going to be staying on Discovery. I like that Saru is starting to really show his chops as captain in this episode. There are hints of Picard in his dealings with Tarina, but unlike Picard with the rest of the crew, he's much closer to them, and he's willing to listen to his heart, you know, like offering Tilly the acting first officer role. This was almost the season's first ball episode. Most of it was taken on board Discovery, except for that one scene in Starfleet headquarters, and I kind of gutted at that. I would have liked to have seen Navarre. This is happening a lot in this season, is that they're getting to the point really quickly in a lot of episodes. Rather than letting things dangle and hint at something getting solved, they're solving things very, very quickly, and it's moving the story on very quickly, but it also means at the same time, they're not delving into things maybe as deeply as they could. Right, so I loved seeing Spock again. I mean, who didn't? It was such a lovely moment to see, even if it's just a recording, just to see Spock on the screen in Star Trek once again. And you know what? It was great seeing the results of his last great mission, which was obviously to reunite Vulcans and Romulans. Adding to that little moment there, it was so nice to see all the little nods to the past. You know, like the results of the Unification, the use of the needs of the many, the logs of Jean-Luc Picard, and then linking in the new series Star Trek Picard to Discovery. That was quite nice. I like that. And of course the nod to Anton Yelchin by calling one of the ships USS Yelchin. What wasn't I a fan of? The return of Michael's mother. I think it was a bit jarring and a bit like, oh really? Okay. I would have liked there to be maybe been a little bit more backstory. I kind of understand why there wasn't. It was just a bit sudden that suddenly, oh, Michael's mum's back. And she's this, and how convenient for the plot. However, on the flip side, she got Michael to actually confront her feelings and confront her sense of loss and get her to a stage where she could understand where she fits in Discovery. The big mystery is the burn, and of course we have more data now. So it looks like we're going to be finding out the cause of the burn sooner rather than later, which is great. The interesting thing about this season, I think, is that we don't have a big bad yet. We've had the Emerald Chain, but in terms of bad guys, they kind of feel like they're not so much Dominion as Marquis, you know? They're just a little side quest more than anything else. So the next episode is called Sanctuary. So what do we think will happen? With the pace that this season has been building up to, I reckon we're pretty much going to find out the source of the burn, maybe even the cause of the burn really, really quickly. We still have questions around what's happening with Georgiou, and then of course we need to resolve what's happening with Book. Tell me your thoughts. Comment below, tell me what you thought of this episode, what you hope to see in the next episode. And don't forget to like this video, hit subscribe, and turn on the alert so you get a notification every time one of these videos goes live. And of course, come and follow me over at Twitch, where I'm streaming every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Thanks, folks. Have fun.